Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you, though I guess technically I'm not seeing you, you're seeing me, but I'm imagining who you are because you've reached out and said something about these postscript reflections. You'll notice that I have a Detroit Tigers shirt. You see, I have a Toronto Blue Jays cap and a Detroit Tigers shirt because I'm doing my best to hold these polls. And I know London has deep affiliation with both cities, Toronto and Detroit, and their various teams. And so it's summer, baseball's in full swing, and I think the Tigers might be playing a little bit better than the Blue Jays this year. Neither of them are necessarily going to win the pennant, but I try to watch both. So hence the Tigers shirt today. I want to say just a few words, and I hope that they'll inspire some further reflection on what we talked about this last Sunday. The initial title of the sermon was going to be The Joy of Abundant Sowing, but then I changed it to The Destiny of Abundance. It's still connected to this notion of generosity and abundance, but I thought it was important to really emphasize what the Apostle Paul is trying to communicate to the community in Corinth. It is a community that had become divided. It was always perhaps a bit tense. It was a multinational, multi-ethnic, vibrant, bustling city in Paul's time. It was a trade city. And there were many activities that went on in the city which ran in counter direction, let us say, to what the Christian community was trying to do. But Paul is careful to not say things that are going to alienate parts of the church, because the church itself is comprised of people from various backgrounds. But one of the issues that Paul has and feels compelled to speak to is the huge gap, this wealth disparity that existed in the church. According to Paul's letter, some who had means in the Corinthian community were using those means to take and litigate against those without means. I assume there had been loans issued because a lot of people with means would make money through issuing loans to persons that did not have the same means. And when they were unable to pay back, they take them to court. And it ends up becoming a relationship breaking practice. And Paul knows that. Paul knows that we in any community, but certainly a faith community, live in a fragile state, right? We are always at risk of not just stepping on each other's toes, but really running up against what other people believe or where they're at in their life. And so it's very important that we listen to Paul's exhortation here and listen to the Spirit to be humbled and sensitive to various situations that are not our own. So Paul calls on those with means to be generous. And he cites examples of other communities and their generosity, even when they didn't have as much as the Corinthian community. Paul says that when we receive, or when we have, let us say, an excess of what we need, then we are to give thanks, to maybe even experience it as blessing. But more importantly, we are to share that, so there can be something closer to an equitable distribution of goods and services. Remember, I had preached earlier about how the giving and sharing and distribution of goods was an important ministry of the early church throughout the Mediterranean region. That's no different in Corinth. And so I imagine that things had gotten a little bit out of whack in this situation. And Paul is speaking directly to that and says that if we allow for this disparity, this wealth gap to continue to grow, we are going to break apart not only the church, but any hope of community and life together. I think we could say the same thing about our own time. When we allow these gaps and these huge divides to exist in our communities, both church community, but also our broader London community, there is dissension, there's tension, there's resentment that begins to be fostered. We need to be able to share and experience the joy of generosity, not just for our own spiritual edification or benefit, but so that we can live in a world that we're called to help co-create. we can model and create an example for the younger generation. They're looking to us for leadership in this area. So I hope that you take something of that from Paul's reflections. Paul was just like us, right? Probably at his wit's end about how to deal with some of the problems that arose. But I believe that his discernment continues to guide us, or can guide us forward as we seek to create more equitable distribution and practices in our own world, our time, and our place. Thanks again for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week.